We're a week away from UFC 315. Belal Muhammad looks to defend his title for the first time against Jack Della Maddalena. And not only is Belal looking to defend his title, but he's also looking to fight back Father Time as he's 36 years old. And to be honest, I thought he was 37. So you know what? Belal isn't as old as I thought. There's only been one person in the history of the welterweight division to win a title or to win a championship fight at 37, and that was Woodley. But Belal's not even in that territory yet. But you guys still have no idea who I'm going to pick. So stay tuned. We have a pretty decent co-main event. Jose Aldo, the return of Jose. Benoit Saint Denis versus Joel Alvarez. Malott versus Radtke. Bukauskas versus Cutelaba. Lots of Marauders on here. We even got Andrade Barriault. Marauders actually evolved from Marc-Andre Barriault's style. So that should be an interesting fight to break down, him versus a modern-day Marauder and Bruno Silva. But before we get into this, I just wanted to let you guys know that if you're tired of eating these boring, these bland foods, dude. If you're tired of eating these bland foods, we've got something special for you. That's right. First up, get yourself a blender and add 2 organic bananas, a half a cup of raw honey, but no more because then it'll be too sweet, 2 pasteurized eggs, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 4 tablespoons of cocoa powder. We're going to blend that up. We're going to add it to a glass baking tray. We're going to put that in the oven for about 12 minutes at 375 Fahrenheit. And you've got yourself some hearty, tasty, healthy homemade brownies. I just showed you guys one of the recipes from my cookbook. Some of you have already seen it before, but if you're interested in making tasty comfort foods while you're looking to get in shape and you want to at least have them be made with whole and unprocessed ingredients, you could check out my Real Food Cookbook. It's an ebook, so if you want to get the cookbook, you have to type in your email while you're buying it, and it should be sent directly to your email as a ebook. But either way, let's get into these predictions, starting with Brad Katona versus Bekzat Almakhan. I'm going to go with Bekzat Almakhan to knock out Brad Katona. I was saying this after his Umar Nurmagomedov loss. I was saying this win is going to age well. Who does that to Bekzat Almakhan? All right? Umar Nurmagomedov got dropped in the first round badly by a nasty clubbing right hand from Bekzat. And that doesn't mean he's just going to go in there and easily knock out Brad Katona. Umar made a mistake. People get caught in fights, and that was the definition of just getting caught, slipping. But either way, Bekzat Almakhan is a finisher, and getting out-grappled by Umar is not the worst thing. Do I think Umar would have done Brad Katona like that? Man, Brad Katona's a pretty good grappler. I don't know. But he probably would have just beat him up on the feet. Against Bekzat actually seemed to be the guy that was pretty capable, and he's not fought since the Umar fight. He's taken some time off, probably bulking up into this bantamweight division. I think he used to be a flyweight. But despite the fact that he might be a little bit smaller than some of these other bantamweights, he will have a reach advantage. He has a 68-inch reach, and we know Brad Katona's got the T-Rex arms. He's got a 64.5-inch reach. And Bekzat Almakhan has a height advantage. So I think he's going to have that rangy style. He's sort of like an Umar Nurmagomedov on the feet, but more, power punching, if that makes sense. And if you look at Bekzat Almakhan's highlights, there's always this, like, when you have these guys like Bekzat Almakhan or Shavkat Rakhmonov, you have these Russian fighters or guys coming out of, like, Kazakhstan. They always have, like, highlight tapes, and they're always playing, like, Call of Duty lobby music. And they're finishing people, and there's this Call of Duty lobby music playing. And that dude, Bekzat Almakhan's got that X factor from those videos. So I'm telling you, I'm picking him based on the highlights. Not only, but let's be honest, man. Even though Brad Katona took Cody Gibson to a war, he's not really been able to duplicate that. He had a gritty fight with Cody Gibson where he showed toughness. He imposed his will. But for the majority of his career, he's been a pitter-pack guy who, when he takes people down, he can't really keep them down. So I think he's going to be forced to stand on the feet with Bekzat Almakhan. And I think that Bekzat is as good as Garrett Armfield, and Garrett Armfield was able to comfortably beat Brad Katona. It was a pretty boring fight. Not a whole lot happened, but I think Bekzat is at least at that Garrett Armfield level. He's 11-2, you know, still really young in the game. And I think that I think he's a really decent fighter. So I'm going to go with Bekzat to beat the vet Brad Katona, who I don't know if he's reached crafty level of vet status, right? I don't know if I can call him crafty yet. He's still not an old head. So Brad Katona is just an okay fighter. I think Bekzat Almakhan is a decent fighter. I'm going to pick him to win this. Again, I think that the reach advantage is going to play a factor. With the power, Bekzat does have some really nasty power. I think he's going to be faster, and yes, maybe Brad Katona can out-grapple him, but he's not shown the ability to hold people down and keep them down and beat them up real bad. So I think that on the feet, Bekzat will make those moments count, and I think he'll be able to KO Brad Katona in this fight. Again, he has a lot of power and lighter man skill. I think he used to be a flyweight, so he's got that lighter man skill, which is going to be significant against a guy with a short reach in Brad Katona who doesn't have a lot of pop. He's going to have that speed and the power. So I think Bekzat's getting this done by a KO. Let's get on to the next one. This is an absolute war. This is a war fest between Jeongyeong Lee, who really took a page out of TKZ's book. Remember when TKZ ran at Max Holloway and got knocked out? It was like the funniest moment in UFC history, where in the third round, TKZ, with absolutely no regard for defense or his, safety, just runs at Max Holloway, chin on a silver platter. Jeongyeong Lee got basically done like that. It's just that, he was actually having a slugging moment, but he chose to slug with one of the world's best marauders in Haider Emil. Haider Emil's got a granite chin. He's got big clubbing power. And you know what? Jeongyeong Lee, only a couple fights in the UFC, but I really like the fact that he was willing to grit down in the pocket with a guy like Haider Emil. And you know what? Haider Emil's super tough. Haider Emil's pretty good. He just beat William Gomez, who is like the definition of a tricky customer, and that's a pretty good win for a shorter, stocky marauder build. Those guys usually have a tough time beating a William Gomez. Haider Emil, he can get it done against sluggers. He can get it done against long-rangey back foot strikers. So, yes, Jeongyeong Lee's coming off of a knockout loss. But you know what? Gavin Tucker, dude. This guy, you see the photo, he's almost black and white. He's got a little bit of color, which means that this is a photo taken from the Reebok days. And you see he's wearing the Reebok pants. It's kind of weird because he's fought in the Venom era, which is a little bit weird. But still, he's 38. I know he doesn't look that old, but he's 38 years old. He's been so inactive over the years. Jeongyeong Lee is like 29. And yeah, Gavin Tucker's a real vet. Well, let's be honest, dude. He's not really shown us anything crafty. He's been getting KO'd. He's been getting finished in the first round by Diego Lopez, by Dan Ige. Jeongyeong Lee, I think that I like his willingness to trade and impose his will. And I don't see Gavin Tucker as this guy that's going to have a Haider Emil ability. Haider Emil is a guy in his prime with a granite chin, with heavy hands, who's hungry. Gavin Tucker's 38. Is he as hungry as the 29-year-old Jeongyeong Lee coming off of a loss, 1-1? He's got a chip on his shoulder, wants to prove himself. I'm going to go with Jeongyeong Lee to win this. He's also got a height and reach advantage, 4-inch height advantage. Dude, he's got a massive reach advantage too. He has a 73.5-inch reach, whereas Gavin Tucker has a 66-inch reach. I mean, I think this is a easy pick. Jeongyeong Lee will get this one done. Let's get on to the next one. The world's first ever marauder, even though he wasn't competing early on in the UFC. I know that, you got Chris Lieben. I'm sort of joking around. Chris Lieben is probably the world's first marauder. No, but some of the boxing old heads back in the day were marauders too, let's be honest. But Marc-Andre Barriault is in like a class of his own when it comes to his marauding style. I've always said this, but he's got this style where he's like a bison locking horns, like a ram locking horns with his opponent. It's very simple. All he does is he walks into the center of the octagon, sort of trudges forward. He puts his head down forward, forehead forward, and he just slugs in the pocket and brings people into this slug warfare where Marc-Andre Barriault's got this hard noggin. He's got, slow hands, but they've got some thud. He's the definition of thud. He's not knocking anyone out unconscious, but he's just got thud, man, and he's got a dense head. Whereas Bruno Silva, Bruno Silva's sort of had his wars. And Marc-Andre Barriault has that style where he does go to war, but it's like a volume style of war in the pocket where people are sort of just like trading a little bit. They're not really going super hard on their punches. Bruno Silva has the style of wars where it's like, you're really going to war with Alex Pereira. You're really going to war with Gerald Meerschaert. And, he's old, man. He's old. And I think that Marc-Andre Barriault's style has not slowed down, whereas Bruno Silva, we've seen him slow down. We've seen him start to look a little bit older, a little bit weathered, right? Not as durable, not as game. And Marc-Andre Barriault is always game, man. I think Marc-Andre Barriault's got the style where he can do this in his 40s. He'll be able to do this. And I'm going to go with Marc-Andre Barriault. I see this being a war. I see Marc-Andre Barriault. A few years ago, Bruno Silva had this like mystique about him because he gave Alex Pereira a tough fight. But right now, I'm sorry, I'm going to Marc-Andre Barriault to win this slugfest in the pocket. It's going to be a decision for Marc-Andre, 30-27. Let's get on to the next one. Navajo Stirling versus Ivan Erslan. This is Ibo Aslan's long-lost brother, Ivan Erslan. Both of them, Ibo Aslan and Ivan, had recently lost to Aiemann Cutelaba, who's going to be in the next fight. But I'm going to go with Navajo Stirling. I think this is sort of a discount Volkanovsdemir, dude. Ivan Erslan had a moment against Aiemann where he took him down and controlled him. But you know how Aiemann Cutelaba is. Aiemann Cutelaba is like a turtle off of his back, right? He's sort of confused, doesn't really know how to get up. He's not the most technical grappler. Ivan Erslan had a split decision against him. But again, I'm looking at him strike, and he's got a very, very simple man style. Put a jab out there, put a right hand out there, but he doesn't stand out. There's nothing that he does that's great. He obviously is a heavy hitter, okay? But Navajo Stirling, with a win over Tuco Tokos, I just think that there's something about Tuco Tokos where if you get a win over him in his UFC debut, Tuco Tokos is really tough. And, he was starting to turn that tide in the Navajo Stirling fight. Navajo Stirling dominated him in the first round, almost finished Tuco a couple times. Had a lot of hype coming out of CKB, and everyone expected him to dust Tuco. But Tuco was standing there tough. He had like a 1 minute moment where he was winning, and everyone started to cheer for Tuco Tokos, but he got destroyed. I think Navajo's going to get this done. I think he's just going to be a little bit slicker. I think his kickboxing is better. He's going to have a height and reach advantage, 79-inch reach. That's a big reach advantage. Again, a little bit of an underwhelming debut, but then again, he almost finished Tuco Tokos a few times in that fight. It's just that the shot selection is not all that there yet. But I'm looking at another very simple style in front of him where it's just obvious that Navajo Stirling is the better kickboxer, right? He has better kicks. He has better punching. He has the longer reach. He trains out of CKB where they all have decent takedown defense. He's big for the weight class. So again, Ivan Erslan, he definitely is a strong guy, but Navajo Stirling is no pipsqueak in this division. So I'm going to go with Navajo Stirling to get this one done via a decision. I still think he's very green. So again, I said he doesn't have that shot selection where he can think on the fly and, really put people away with creative setups yet in MMA, but I think he's at least more skilled than Ivan Erslan and should be able to win this decision. Let's get on to the next one. Modestas Bukauskas versus Aiemann Cutelaba. This is interesting. Aiemann Cutelaba is actually hitting a second wind right now. He's sort of in his second prime, winning against Ivan Erslan, winning against Ibo Aslan. So he's been taking out his doppelganger sort of fighters, getting a submission. Aiemann Cutelaba with a submission game, got a head and arm triangle in his last fight. He's been doing very well, and he's been fighting smarter. But Modestas Bukauskas, since he got, booted out of the UFC, got his knee destroyed by Khalil Roundtree, left the UFC, worked his way back up through Cage Warriors, I believe, or some other promotion. He started training with Tom Aspinall, and he's a different fighter. And I think that's pretty clear. You watch him fight against the last guy, I forget his name, like this Brazilian guy who was coming off of a loss. But Modestas Bukauskas put him away on the feet in the first round with a really clean combination. It seems like he's been using his reach and his range a little bit better. He's very big for the weight class, 6'3", 76-inch reach. And we saw how he was able to beat Prachnio, who is decent, who's okay. Ion Cutelaba is the more impressive fighter physically, but I think Modestas Bukauskas, training with Aspinall, that's going to give him a lot of confidence, and I think he's a smarter fighter. I think he's more cerebral. How do I know that? Because you just hear him talk, okay, and you see him compete. He's a thinking man out there. Ion Cutelaba just sort of goes out there to smash people. I don't think I have to explain why I think Modestas Bukauskas is a more cerebral fighter, all right? But it's always possible that Ion can win this one. The thing is, though, I feel like Ion Cutelaba needs a big takedown. And, you know, I just don't think Modestas Bukauskas is easy to take down. And I also don't think that Ion Cutelaba has the best boxing. Yeah, he has a lot of power, but, okay, he can land it when he's slugging in the pocket with these other guys that are slugging with him like Ibo Aslan. But against a longer, rangier striker, Ion Cutelaba usually has a hard time landing those big strikes. And I think Modestas Bukauskas can sort of comfortably sit at range and just, you know, pop in the jab, land some long, rangy kicks. I see Modestas Bukauskas getting this one done. And again, in his last fight, he looked very powerful, got a nasty KO. We know Ion Cutelaba has been chinned a lot. So I'm going to go with Modestas Bukauskas to win this one by a decision. But this could be a war. All right, we've seen Modestas Bukauskas get submissions. We've seen him get KOs now. Ion Cutelaba got his first submission. He's got a lot of KOs too. I hope this is a good fight, but it could be your classic light heavyweight, low output because, you know, they're a heavier weight class and, you know, they can't throw that much output without totally gassing out, and it ends up being a bit of a stinker, but we'll see. Let's get on to the next one. Jasmine Jasudavicius, Jessica Andrade. Ah, man, that record for Jessica Andrade doesn't look good. 26-13. And Jasmine Jasudavicius is like Canada's most reliable fighter right now. She's going to have a serious height advantage. She's going to have a serious reach advantage. You know what? I think Jasmine Jasudavicius gets this one done. I think she's pretty good on the ground. That seems to be where Jessica Andrade struggles. She's dangerous on the feet, but again, Jasmine Jasudavicius is going to have that threat of the takedown. She'll be able to land some strikes upstairs. She'll get the takedown. She'll probably get Jessica Andrade into a bad position and like beat her up or get a submission. So I'm going to go with Jasmine Jasudavicius. This is not prime Jessica Andrade anymore. So let's get on to the next one. Mike Malott versus Charles Radtke. You know, I was going to pick Mike Malott, but I'm changing my pick to Charles Radtke. All right. For whatever reason, I was under the impression that Charles Radtke was terrible, because he had gotten made to look foolish against Carlos Prates, right? But he's actually won 3 out of his only 4 fights in the UFC, which is pretty good, and he's coming off of a big KO. Charles Radtke has power in his hands, trains with Belal Muhammad, so you know he's got some decent takedown defense. And Mike Malott, you know, Mike Malott looked really good in his build up to the Magny fight. He was beating everyone. He was finishing people. He was blowing people out of the water, looking well-rounded, looking fast, had a submission game, right? We saw him destroy Adam Fugit. And against Neil Magny, he was actually beating Neil Magny. So that's actually pretty impressive. The thing is, though, in his last fight against Trevin Giles, and this just happens to be the case with a lot of prospects when they are destroying people on the way up and then they get fraud checked and they take a bad beating. In their next fight, it's very boring. Look at Sergey Pavlovich, by the way. Look at Sergey Pavlovich's fight after Volkov, all right? And after Aspinall. He had this fight with Jairzinho where it looked like a boring stinkfest. And clearly he's not mentally the same savage that he was in his fight with Tom Aspinall and before that. And sometimes all it takes is one stinkfest to get your confidence back a little bit, right? Dip your toe back into the water, the fight game, man. Get your confidence a little bit, and then after that, you're good. But Charles Radtke's going to come out the gate slugging, right? He's got nasty power in his hands, and he's got a lot of confidence. He's been training with the champ. Mike Malott coming off of this boring tit-tat decision against Giles. And don't get me wrong, Giles is a tricky customer because even though he's one of these NPCs that doesn't do anything on the feet, no disrespect, but like that's just what Trevin Giles' style is. He's one of the most frustrating fighters to watch in the UFC. He literally goes out there and throws like 3 jabs around. He's literally like a CPU in UFC 4 that's just programmed to only throw a certain amount of strikes every single round. It will never take any risk. I just can't stand watching those kinds of fights. But Mike Malott obliged to that sort of fight. I think if Charles Radtke is in there with a guy like Giles, I think he's going there slugging for the fences. And I think he's going to win that every time. So Mike Malott, he's had more impressive performances, okay? I think he will be faster. But I just think that after the Magny fight, he seems to have lost a little bit of that confidence that he had on the come-up. And he's playing it a little bit safe. And when you're playing it safe, you're being hesitant. And when you're hesitant on the feet against a power puncher, you're a little jittery, right? You're a little, I don't want to get hit right now. And I feel like we're going to see a little bit of that. And I think Charles Radtke is the guy that will make him pay. So this is, I mean, I don't know what the odds are. I'm assuming Mike Malott is the favorite. The odds aren't showing, but I think that on paper, Mike Malott should win this fight, okay? On paper, he seems to be better. He seems to be more well-rounded. He's fast. He's slick. He's pretty smart. Radtke, I just think I'm going to go with my gut feeling on this one. I just think he's going to get this one done. And I feel like, you know, you're going to say, well, this is a vibes pick or whatever. But you know what? Okay, it's a vibes pick. I think Radtke will beat Mike Malott. I think Charles Radtke is someone that's going to go out there and he's just going to go for it. He's going to impose his will. Whereas Mike Malott, since the Magny fight, I think he's like worried that if he actually goes for it, like he'll gas out. And the thing is, if he goes for it against Radtke, I don't think Radtke is this like really great grappler with great cardio like Neil Magny, where if you get in a bad position on the ground, you're toast. Radtke is not the best wrestler. He's okay. I just think he's very dangerous on the feet. And yeah, I think Radtke is going to get this one done. But you know what? This is in Canada, and the crowd's behind Mike Malott. So that actually makes it a lot more interesting. And I understand, well, he fought Magny in Canada. Yeah, but Magny is more proven than Radtke. Magny has the most wins in welterweight history. Neil Magny. Neil Magny has a lot of wins. He is very crafty, right? This is tough, man. This is one of those fights that's really, really tough to pick. So let's look at this a little bit more. Let's see who has the reach advantage. So Mike Malott is going to be slightly taller, 73-inch reach, very similar. Yeah, man. I don't know. I really have a hard time picking this fight. I don't know who's going to win this. This is a tough one. Like you cannot call me, oh, Lucas is a fence sitter on this one. No, not at all. It's just that some of these fights, they're coin tosses. Like you literally can't confidently pick one or the other. Radtke has the power advantage. Malott has the speed advantage. Malott has the submission game. Radtke's got he's got some big takedowns and some, heavy pressure wrestling. But yeah, I don't know, guys. I'm not confident on this pick, but I'm going to say that Radtke is going to get it done. But, Mike Malott, it's just a 50-50 fight. All right, let's just move on to the next one. I say I'll go with Radtke by decision, all right? Nah, you can't even do that, though. You can't even do that because Radtke by decision is like not even likely. It's Radtke by KO or Malott by finish or decision. But who was Malott beating on the come-up? He was beating Walmart Guram Kutateladze, Kyle Nelson might be better than Guram Kutateladze, honestly. Kyle Nelson literally might be the better version of Guram. So that's actually an okay win. And destroyed Adam Fugit. But lost to Magny. But losing to Magny is not the worst look because he was dominating Magny. But then that Trevin Giles fight just sucked, dude. It just absolutely sucked. He got made to look like an NPC himself in that fight. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Charles Radtke via imposing as well. Let's get on to the next one. Benoit Saint Denis versus Joel Alvarez. France versus Spain. Long, rangy striker versus Marauder build, 5'11", Benoit Saint Denis. This is actually a tough fight for me to pick, but it's an easy pick, all right? I am reluctantly going to go with Joel Alvarez to finish Benoit Saint Denis via a pity stoppage. Benoit's too tough to get knocked out cold, but I predict that there's going to be a later third or second round KO up against the fence where Benoit has taken a serious beating up until that point, and he's not going to go out, and it's clear that he's too tough to go out cold, but the ref is just going to save him from taking too many blows. So I think the ref steps in third round after a brutal beatdown from Joel Alvarez. Now, I don't think it's going to be Holloway Cater where the entire fight is going to be a landslide from Joel Alvarez. I think Benoit will have some moments. I think that Benoit will land some of those sneaky left hands from southpaw. I think he's going to land the big body kicks. I hope Benoit goes out there, body kick, pushing him back up, body kick, takedown, judo trip up against the fence, and then fucks up Joel Alvarez and submits him in one. But that's not going to happen. Joel Alvarez, I will say, I don't think he's going to beat up Benoit Saint Denis like Moicano did. I don't think Joel Alvarez has the best ground and pound. He's got a submission game. He's a really good grappler. He's got great jiu-jitsu defense. He's got great scrambles, but I think he's more of a submission artist. And Moicano's a submission artist, but Moicano's, he's got some ground and pound, and he's more of a control guy as well. So I don't see Benoit getting beaten up badly on the ground, but I do see them having some grappling exchanges. But I actually think it's the striking that's going to be Benoit's downfall on this fight. Apparently, he's working with a new team, and he's brushing up on his boxing defense, and that's great. But, I mean, listen, even if Benoit gets better on the feet, there's still a clear disadvantage that most people are going to have with Joel Alvarez, and that's just the reach and the height. Joel Alvarez is 6'2". He has a 77-inch reach. He's sort of like Jalen Turner, but he's even better than Jalen Turner because he picks his shots more. And I actually think he's as fast. He's probably as powerful. He's got really sneaky knees up the middle, and that's how he was able to finish Elvis Brenner. He rocked Elvis Brenner with a long-rangey right hand, and then they clinched, and he was able to knee Elvis Brenner a few times, and he put him away with the knees, and we saw what he did in his last fight against Close. He just rocked him and then leaped in with a flying knee and finished him in the first round. Brutal flying knee KO. I don't think he's going to put Benoit out cold. I just think that Joel Alvarez is going to be able to tag Benoit Saint Denis at range. And Benoit Saint Denis, despite the fact that his boxing might improve going into this fight, I still think that, I'm not expecting him to have the best boxing defense. I'm not expecting him to have the Poirier, Max Holloway 2 Philly shell or, a Sean Strickland level of boxing defense. I think that what we're going to see is Benoit looks slightly better, but it's going to be hard for him to consistently land big power shots on the long rangey Joel Alvarez, who's going to be able to sit out a kicking range. And Joel Alvarez has nasty leg kicks. So not only is he going to have the range advantage when it comes to his straight punches, which are nasty, and he has a lot of power on them because he's really good at blinding you with the jab and sneaking them in. And again, Benoit's defense is not that good on the feet, so he's going to be susceptible to getting hit with that. But Joel Alvarez can also just punish him at range with his leg kicks. He's got nasty leg kicks. And then again, we're talking about the clinch. Benoit Saint Denis is a guy that loves to fight in the clinch. He loves to beat people up in the clinch. And I've actually seen Joel Alvarez get beat up in the clinch against Aiemann Zahabi, and Aiemann took him down and viciously beat him up and finished him. But I think Aieman's got the best ground and pound in the lightweight division. Aiemann may have the best ground and pound in the UFC. I mean, we've never seen someone beat up prime Charles Oliveira with ground and pound. Back in the day, fair enough, people would beat him up, but prime Oliveira is a problem because as soon as you posture up to throw ground and pound, he's going to put you in a submission, which is why we even saw Makhachev hesitant to really separate and try to land strikes. But against Aiemann Zahabi, Aiemann was beating him up. I don't know if Benoit Saint Denis is capable of doing that. I think he's got great grappling. Just because he got out-grappled in the first round against Moicano, I don't think that means his grappling is bad. Remember, judo black belt, has a few submissions in the UFC, submitted one of the Bonfim brothers, submission in his second ever UFC fight, took Dustin Poirier down, and I know Poirier pulled guillotine, but he took Poirier's back a few times. he's clearly a good grappler. We saw what he did to Thiago Moises. He's a good grappler with good cardio. But Joel Alvarez has so many submissions. I think he's got like 15 plus submissions in his pro career. He hardly gets controlled on the ground. Elvis Brenner was taking down Guram a bunch of times, but could barely take down Joel Alvarez, man. I mean, Joel Alvarez has good takedown defense, great grappling, good submission game. I think what we're going to see is Joel Alvarez at range, kicking the shit out of Benoit Saint Denis' legs, lighting him up with the right hand. And I think it's going to be tough for Benoit, who is a little bit slow. He's never been the fastest, right? He's a guy that goes in there with pure confidence and hits really hard, and he's super tough, but he's never been that fast. Joel Alvarez is lightning fast, and I think that it's going to be tough for Benoit to get to Joel Alvarez consistently without taking a beating on the way in. And I think in the third round, the damage from the kicks will add up. Benoit Saint Denis will have a swelling eye, and I think we see Joel Alvarez just with a beaten up Benoit Saint Denis who's taken a lot of damage, finish him up against the fence. Similar to the Elvis Brenner fight. And, I know Benoit might be better than Elvis Brenner, but Joel Alvarez is improving a lot, okay? So I think we're going to see Joel Alvarez get this one done. Again, I just think it's a bad matchup. Joel Alvarez has the reach advantage, the height advantage, the speed advantage. He's good in every range. He's good in the clinch with his knees. He's good in boxing range. He has power. He has great leg kicks. And he has a ridiculously good grappling game. Benoit Saint Denis is decent with his grappling, with his takedowns, with his submissions, but he's not the best with it. And he's a little bit slow on the feet. And if you're his height, I think he can damage you, with the body kicks. And I think he can tag people up on the feet as well. But 6'3" or 6'2", it's just going to be tough for Benoit to have a lot of success on the feet. I am rooting for him because I'd like to see him make a comeback. I think that even though Joel Alvarez is a really fun fighter and the hardcore fans are getting behind him and they're starting to root for him, and, I'm a fan of Joel Alvarez. I think he's got a really entertaining style. Even though he's one of the few fighters representing Spain, for whatever reason, he doesn't have the same pop in Spain that Benoit has in France. You know what I mean? Whereas even Ilya's not ethnically Spanish, but he is big in Spain. Benoit Saint Denis has like a ton of fans in France. So I actually think it'd be like Benoit, I think, has a little bit more star power if he starts to win. And he's got that aura, man. He's a freaking aura merchant. He's an aura farmer. And there's been a drought in Benoit Saint Denis's plot. There's been a drought in his plot of land. And I'd like to see the aura come back for him to farm. I mean, if you're rooting against Benoit, you just don't want to see this man farm. And I like to see Benoit Saint Denis as a happy, healthy farmer. Okay? Joel Alvarez, if he wins, we're in good hands because at least Joel Alvarez is entertaining and he is, 100% Spanish. So I feel like this is a fight where he can get a big fan base. And I'm saying that he doesn't have a big fan base. He probably does, but it's not translating over to the American audience. Like, I can't see all the Spanish fans. Joel Alvarez, you know what I mean? Benoit has like 1 million French MMA YouTubers covering him with hundreds of thousands of views. So, yeah, but if Joel Alvarez wins this, I think he'll be a bigger star in Spain, and I think that'd be great. Imagine he beats Benoit Saint Denis, Ilia Topuria fights someone next, wins the title, and then it's like we're going to Spain. We have Joel Alvarez. Man, that would be crazy. You might have Joel Alvarez fighting Ilia Topuria in the future, but we could have like a Joel Alvarez feature fight against a big name in Spain, and then you could have Ilia Topuria main event. That'd be pretty cool too, but I think we'll probably see that. Hopefully the UFC goes to Spain. I don't see why they wouldn't. They have, if Joel Alvarez wins this fight, that's another potential star that they have. But yeah, it's a tough fight for Benoit. Let's get on to the next one. Natalia Silva, man, versus Alexa Grasso. Natalia Silva is one of these fighters. She came into the UFC and for whatever reason instantly had tons of hype as being like this super, technical cyborg. They were talking about her like she was Shevchenko. And she had this fainting performance where I was like, man, she's so overrated. She's fainting a lot to show how fancy she is. But in reality, it's like she's not really doing a whole lot. But she's been winning consistently. I don't think she's lost in the UFC. Alexa Grasso's the former champ, though. Alexa Grasso's got heavy hands. Alexa Grasso has good boxing. And I'm going to pick Alexa Grasso to win this. I think Natalia Silva's good. I think she's got a good kicking game. But I think it's easy because she's skilled. It's easy to look good against most of the women in WMMA that have no idea what they're doing, that literally look like they're closing their eyes and, swimming underwater when they're throwing punches. She's in there with someone that's actually good for the first time in her career, and Alexa Grasso has championship experience. She's got a win over Valentina Shevchenko. She's fought Shevchenko 3 times, okay? She's fought her 3 times. And Shevchenko is a more polished, more dangerous, better grappling version of Natalia Silva. Natalia Silva is mostly striking. I'm going to go with Grasso to win this by a decision. Let's get on to the next one. Jose Aldo versus Aiemann Zahabi. This is a pretty easy fight to pick. You got to go with Aiemann Zahabi. Even though he looks like a middleweight on the feet, you got to go with the man. No, I'm joking. I'm picking Jose Aldo. I think this is probably the most landslide fight on the card. Now, sometimes you say that, and Jose Aldo is the kind of fighter to when he should win via landslide because he's just so much more skilled than his opponent. His low output and his just ability to always get held up against the fence comes back to ruin it. That's the thing about Aldo. Aldo is so much better than most people that he fights, but he doesn't throw that much. And that's the thing. It's like he's always been someone that only throws a little bit because he's very explosive, and I think he relies on his speed. He's sort of a sprinter in there. He's always been like that. And so if someone could out-volume him a little bit and out-dog him, right? But then it's like people do have the ability to hold him up against the fence. And Aiemann Zahabi, you just know that his brother and him are working on a game plan to overwhelm Aldo, just throw more output than him. This guy's clearly going to be faster than you. He's clearly going to be better on the feet, but just throw volume and then just hold him up against the fence because that's what people do. Don't take him down. Just hold him up against the fence. And you know what? At some point, Aldo is the guy that needs to take responsibility to learn how to not do that, to learn how to not get put there. Because, yeah, it's annoying when people hold him up against the fence. And I think that if there's no action, then the ref should separate it. But still, just learn how to get out of those positions, man. We don't like seeing you there either. But I'm still going to go with Aldo. I watched Aiemann Zahabi's fight back with Pedro Munoz, and, dude, Pedro Munoz is literally the definition of not a tricky customer. He's a tough out. He's not a tricky customer. He's a very simple customer, but he is the definition of a tough out because people will look at Pedro Munoz as, oh, that's going to be a tough fight. Yeah, he'll probably lose. I'm going to go with the other guy. You'll break down 10 Pedro Munoz fights. You'll pick against him every single time, and you'll be right every single time, but you're never going to pick someone to dominate him and knock him out cold, right? But people still have respect for Munoz because he's in there and he's tough. And this is the thing. If you look at Pedro Munoz's record, dude, Pedro Munoz has won 2 fights out of his last 10. He's a consistent lose fighter, and he's the oldest he's ever been. So he's been a consistent lose fighter for years, where he's like he's like the high-level Angelusa. He's showing up, he's super tough, but he's probably going to lose. You can't put him away, but he's going to be in front of you. He's going to give you some tough exchanges, but he's going to lose. Okay? Aiemann Zahabi fought old head Pedro Munoz and won, busted him up, had his eye swollen, did well, but again, Zahabi's the younger guy. He should be doing that. Here's the thing. Aiemann Zahabi is a bantamweight. He's got the speed of like a middleweight. And he's got the technique, and listen, he's okay. He's decent, he's a decent fighter. And he beat Basharat. He beat one of the Basharat bros, which is a good win. I'm not saying he's a bad fighter. He's decent. But we're talking about Jose Aldo here. We're talking about one of the fastest, despite him being old, fighters in the bantamweight division. Like, he's 38 and still one of the fastest guys in this division. Still has perfect technique. Good at checking leg kicks, amazing boxing. Aiemann Zahabi has the speed of a middleweight, and he just looks a little bit sloppy. I'm watching the Aiemann Zahabi and Pedro Munoz fight, and it looks like Aiemann Zahabi is throwing like Dricus du Plessis, minus the power minus the physicality, right? And I just do not think he's good enough to be able to beat up Jose Aldo. I don't think he's fast enough. I don't think he's slick enough. The problem is that Jose Aldo, and I feel like his fans are going to relate to this because, you know, there's some big Jose Aldo fans that when you're a big fan of a fighter, you will be very critical of them. They know just as I do, Jose Aldo can be better than someone and still lose because he will get held up against the fence. And I'm not talking about the Merab fight. I'm just talking about moments in fights where it's like he's getting held up against the fence. Someone's just, punch in the air, and it looks good to the judges, and he'll push him back up against the fence. And Jose Aldo will not throw a strike for like 5 minutes. It's frustrating. And you could see how he might lose this fight. But I'm going to go with skill. I'm sorry. He's just better. He's so much better than Aiemann Zahabi. Zahabi's good, but I'm sorry, he's probably the worst bantamweight in the rankings. No disrespect, but I think he is the worst bantamweight in the rankings. He's coming off of a win over the oldest man, Pedro Munoz. Okay? Pedro Munoz has not been a winning fighter since the days where he was fighting Garbrandt, dude. Like, you know, listen, it was one thing when Munoz got pieced up by Aljo. And that was when Munoz's stock was really high and people were really impressed with Aljo. That was like prime Pedro Munoz. He's getting pieced up 10 years later by Aiemann Zahabi. It's not as impressive, okay? And it's not like Aiemann Zahabi is he's just looking like a lightning bolt out there with how fast he is. He was kind of looking slow and just, you know, sloppy combinations, but Munoz just got the short T-Rex arms, man. I got to go with Aldo. I just think he's so much better. His boxing is so much better. He hits hard. He can rock people. Okay? But if Aiemann Zahabi wins this, I don't think he's as good as Mario Batista. I mean, this is another thing. Despite the fact that Mario Batista had a really frustrating performance against Aldo, Mario Batista's still decent. You know, he's got good cardio. He's got great output. He's pretty fast. I think you got to be a little bit faster to beat Aldo. All right, so I'm gonna go with Aldo via pure skill. But dude, Aiemann Zahabi might win, bro. Fuck. But I think Aldo should. I'm gonna go with Aldo. I'm confident that Aldo gets it done. Let's get on to the next one. Manon Fiorot versus Valentina Shevchenko. I'm gonna go with Manon Fiorot, man. I am gonna go with Valentina Shevchenko. Let's be honest, okay? Manon Fiorot, she's good. But the way people used to talk about Manon Fiorot, as if like she was Anderson Silva on the feet, like she was Cyril Gahn on the feet. She's had some tennis grunt performances, like, you know, her fight with Rose Namajunas, where it's like, you know, you watch women play tennis and they're always grunting when they hit the ball. That's basically Manon Fiorot. Eyes closed. Yeah. I'm sorry, I think Valentina Shevchenko has been able to deal with that, okay? Valentina Shevchenko's fought a million tough cookies that say hi-ya on the way in while closing their eyes. Like, listen, I know Manon Fiorot's good for WMMA. I get it. And she's in shape. I picked her to beat Erin Blanchfield because she's in better shape, and that's ultimately what you have to do most of the time. But Valentina Shevchenko is the champ, okay? And she's always been in shape. And she hits hard. She kicks hard. She's got the wrestling. Ultimately, it comes down to that. Valentina Shevchenko will wrestle if she's losing on the feet. And Manon Fiorot is not a one-hitter quitter type of sniper fighter where she knocks people out cold with one kick. No, dude. She's a volume kick-heavy striker on the feet. That's pretty decent. Valentina Shevchenko is a decent kickboxer who, if she's losing on the feet, just will go for the takedowns, and she will get them, and she will stink it up. So Valentina Shevchenko by a 49-46 wrestling fest. Let's get on to the next one. Belal Muhammad versus Jack Della Maddalena. This is actually a really tricky fight. This is actually a really tricky fight. This is a very tricky fight. Belal Muhammad has one of the best resumes in welterweight history. And he's actually not that far off from being the welterweight GOAT. And I was under the impression that You know, Belal's been like 36 for 10 years, it seems. I was under the impression that he was 37 going on 38. He's still 36. So for welterweight, you know, he's still got another year of being really good and being in his prime, because Belal, you know, he hit his prime a little bit later than a lot of other fighters. And JDM, 28 years old, even if he loses this, he can come back at a whole lot better, right? But I think Jack Della Maddalena is going to knock Belal Muhammad out in this fight. For a while, man, I was going with Belal. I was saying, you know what? I was picking JDM to maybe beat Leon, but I was going to say that Leon had the path to victory because Leon Edwards could take JDM down and take his back. The thing is, though, Belal Muhammad, I do not believe will or can finish Jack Della Maddalena, okay? Belal Muhammad, this is no secret, he does not get finishes. He got a finish against, what's his name? I'm sure he could finish people that are unranked. Like, you got a guy like Marab or Belal that don't finish people. Like, if you were to put them up against like an unranked guy, they'll probably get a finish. But against the highest level, Belal is not really getting finishes, okay? Okay, he got one against Sean Brady a while ago, but JDM has a granite chin. There's a reason why JDM is famous for the grit down. There's a reason why I nominate JDM to be the guy to fight the gorilla first. And not the first guy. JDM should be the fifth guy to fight the gorilla, because once you've sacrificed 5 people, then you have someone that's really able to tee off, right? But the thing that I'm saying is, if JDM doesn't get the KO in the first 4 rounds, it's going to the 5th. You get what I'm saying? This fight will go long unless JDM gets the finish. And I think that 5 rounds is a lot of time to have cool, calm, and collected, no kicks, Jack Della Maddalena, who doesn't throw any meat on his punches. Jack Della Maddalena is an efficient fighter. He doesn't put any meat on his punches. What I mean by that is there's no fluff, right? I mean, listen, I'm a boxing guy, so maybe I'm speaking in the sweet science language. Jack Della Maddalena does not overthrow. He does not load up. He does not try to take your head off. He's got perfect technique. He relies on the technique. He relies on the footwork. He relies on the full extension, brother. He's not forcing anything. He's comfortable. He's like a fish in water when he's throwing his hands. And he also doesn't throw a lot of kicks. So he's not throwing weapons like kicks a whole lot that waste a lot of your energy. Because if you've thrown kicks and you've thrown punches, you know it takes more energy to throw a bunch of kicks. This guy's a boxer for the most part on the feet. That's pretty much what he does. He'll throw a knee. Every now and then he's got nasty knees, and he'll time them really well off the break of the clinch. I trust that Jack Della Maddalena will not gas out easily, even if he gets taken down, because if JDM gets taken down early, the worst thing that happens is he gets his back taken for 4 minutes. At worst case scenario, he gets his back taken, he takes a couple of noogie punches, right? Gets knee to the thigh, and I'm not trying to take away from Belal Muhammad's skill on the ground. I'm just saying I do not think he gets finished, or I do not think he gets badly beaten up. And the reason I don't think he gets gassed is because he has a style that is low output and tailored to being patient and finding the right shots. I think that Jack Della Maddalena has the perfect style on the feet to be a kryptonite to Belal Muhammad, whereas I would pick Belal to beat Brady potentially in a rematch, because Brady relies on the grappling and Belal has this amazing takedown defense. JDM doesn't have to take Belal down. He doesn't want to take Belal down, right? I'd pick Belal to beat Leon again. I'd pick Belal to maybe beat a guy like Shavkat, but I still see Belal Muhammad getting caught in the pocket, and there's nobody better at snapping your head back in the pocket with a slick 2 or 3 piece combination ending with one shot to the body like JDM. He relies so much on his technique, and he doesn't put full effort into anything, that he doesn't expend a lot of energy when he throws strikes. And that's why even in the 3rd round against Gilbert Burns, even in the 3rd round against Basil Hoffus with back-to-back weight cuts, he's still able to look really good with his boxing and hit really hard, and he has finishing power. And he's a patient guy. He's just going to stalk you down with that boxing pressure. And I think 25 minutes with Belal, where again, Belal, who is he submitting? This is not just some regular schmuck. This is an elite fighter, and Belal Muhammad has shown us that he doesn't have a submission game against elite fighters. He's got great ground and pound, decent ground and pound. He's got great control. But I don't see him finishing JDM on the ground. okay? And on the feet, I could see Belal Muhammad with the threat of the takedown doing pretty well against JDM. I could see him backing him up, feinting level changes, okay, landing shots upstairs. The thing is, though, JDM's always in a 25-minute fight, when he's on the feet, going to be dangerous. And I think all it takes from a guy like JDM is to land one strike to get you rocked. And when you're rocked, I think he's got you out of there. I think that he's one of these fighters where if he hurts you, you're toast, because he's got great shot selection, because he can rip to the body, he can land a knee when you're darting in for a takedown, a panic takedown, he can time it really well, because I don't see Belal Muhammad finishing him. And I think it's likely that at least 10 minutes of this fight is spent on the feet. I think JDM's got the perfect striking style to, even if he's dropped a couple of rounds early, and he's had a couple of a big shot from JDM, but Belal ducks under for a takedown. You know, there's going to be moments like that where Maddalena will land something big, and Belal, sort of dazed, but not totally rocked, gets him down, right? But I think at least 10 minutes of this fight will be on the feet. And Belal's talking about having these Canelo hands. He's saying everyone's talking about how good JDM is, how good his boxing is. Man, I'm the best boxer in the welterweight division. I want to have a Max Holloway, Calvin Kattar performance. Listen, I know that if Belal starts getting lit up, he's a smart fighter. Like, he will go for the takedowns, but he's telling us he's going to go out there and box with JDM, and I think he's capable of landing strikes, but he's still not as slick as Jack Della Maddalena in the boxing. Like, he will get hit with shots, and JDM does have really nasty power, and Belal's got a good chin. I understand that, but 25 minutes, I expect there to be many moments where Maddalena is in there with Belal Muhammad, and I think one moment is all he needs to rock Belal and to knock him out and to put him away. Now, again, this is a very close fight. I could see Belal Muhammad winning this via decision. And you may be saying, well, if you think Belal's got the style to neutralize JDM more often than not, isn't he the right pick? Well, listen, I don't think so, because Belal Muhammad is able to have success against Leon Edwards by making it a dogfight, but Leon Edwards in the pocket is not that good. Leon Edwards is not a guy with great boxing who can make you pay when you're throwing hands in boxing range. He's not, okay? And Leon Edwards has a striking style where he does actually gas out quite a bit. Whereas Belal Muhammad, you know, he's talking about throwing hands like Canelo. He's going to get into the pocket with JDM, and I think that that's the last guy that you should be standing in the pocket with. And you may say, well, Belal Muhammad is this fighter that can fight with a different game plan every time. You look at his fight with Gilbert Burns, it looked completely different. He fought Gilbert Burns on the outside throwing kicks. All right. But this isn't Gilbert Burns. All right. This is Jack Della Maddalena, who's going to be stalking you down, looking for big, nasty strikes on the feet. I don't think that Belal Muhammad is going to have, like, you know, well, he could have a long rangey kicking game and frustrate JDM and take him down when JDM is looking for a one big moment in a round. But both fighters are high pressure fighters. Belal Muhammad's probably going to move forward in this fight. And I think JDM is always moving forward in a fight. And I think that these guys are going to have a lot of boxing exchanges. And I just think that Jack Della Maddalena in a 25-minute fight, you give this guy 25 minutes. The third round of the Basil Hoffus fight, Basil Hoffus almost got finished. The third round of the Gilbert Burns fight, you gave him an inch on the feet, and he found the finish in the final minute. The more minutes JDM has on the feet with you, it's like Ilya versus Volk. It just felt like Ilya was going to land a big strike on Volk. It just feels like JDM. All he needs is one little moment, and he's good enough to get it. And you know what? I think the Gilbert Burns performance is underrated. Watching that fight live, it seemed like, you know, JDM looked a little bit slow, and apparently he broke his arm because of a kick. So, you know, credit to Gilbert Burns, but he broke his arm in that fight. So it's no wonder he looked a little bit slow as it progressed. But I think he controlled the first round really well. I really think that he was in total control on the feet for pretty much the whole fight. Burns landed a couple of big strikes here and there, but on the feet, JDM was the guy that was, as I keep saying, was in control, was landing nasty combinations, was going to the body really well. And again, I keep talking about this efficient, composed style, even after multiple grappling exchanges where Gilbert Burns takes him down and doesn't really do anything with it. Jack still has the same ability on the feet because he's only throwing hands and he picks his shots really well and he doesn't overthrow and put a lot of energy into them. So I think he's, like, again, the perfect guy to take advantage of those slip-ups that you may make in front of him. The reason why it seemed like Burns was on his way to winning is because he was having the control time. And Belal is clearly the better MMA grappler than Gilbert Burns. I know Gilbert has great jiu-jitsu defense and whatnot, but Belal's a better wrestler in his prime, who's stronger than Gilbert Burns, who's bigger in the division, who has amazing cardio, will definitely take down JDM, will probably take his back, will probably hold him up against the fence. But again, I just don't see him finishing Jack Della Maddalena, and I just see a moment from JDM. That's all I'm saying. I just see that moment. And I know that there's going to be some people watching this video that are going to say, so bro's basically telling us that he knows Belal's going to be beating JDM. Yeah, I do. Like, a lot of fights are like that. I was saying Volkanovski is probably going to outstrike Ilia Topuria until he's not, until he gets caught. There are fights where the guy that is the volume striker and the pressure wrestler will utilize their volume and not get finished. So they'll be the one that is winning exchanges early. But there are many times where they'll face someone that has nasty boxing and KO power that's patient. Patient fighters will lose lots of moments to capitalize in one small moment. So, I mean, it's not me saying Belal's the better fighter and he'll win unless he gets caught. No, but like, Volkanovski was outstriking, as I say, Ilia Topuria. It doesn't necessarily make him the better fighter because Ilia is good enough to at least be in there with him in the striking exchanges and eventually land the big strike. And that's what he's going for. He has a different approach. JDM has the more patient approach. And a more patient fighter will lose moments, will get tagged up, will get taken down. But if they don't get finished, I think 25 minutes is a long time for a guy like that to eventually find the finish. And I think that's what he's going to do. I think he's going to hurt Belal in a striking exchange where they're going to be in the pocket quite a lot. Belal's going to be trying to close the distance to get takedowns, in a bunch of these rounds. And I think at some point, because he's feeling confident on the feet because he just outstruck Leon Edwards a little bit, I think Jack is going to crack him with a nasty shot in the pocket. I think he's going to wobble him. I think that if Belal shoots a panic takedown, Jack Della Maddalena landed that nasty knee on Gilbert Burns. We saw him land knees earlier in the fight against Gilbert Burns that actually rattled Burns as well. I think he's the perfect patient striker to lose a couple rounds and still get it done. He could get it done early, but I think he warms up into a fight. And this is the thing. I keep going back to it, but because he doesn't expend a lot of unnecessary energy, he will still have his power and his speed and his boxing late in the fight. I understand that Belal's the champion, and some people are saying this is a walk in the park because JDM has mediocre takedown defense. I get that, but I think this is a really dangerous boxer for Belal. I think he's way better than Gilbert Burns. I think his performance against Burns was actually better than people thought it was when they watched it live. If you just watch it back, even though Burns was winning with the control time on the feet, it was all Jack Della Maddalena. And if you look at Belal's last few opponents, okay, Luque, Wonderboy, none of these guys are really dangerous with their boxing. It's a risky pick because Belal's the well-rounded guy. And Belal's on this crazy streak, and Belal is working his way up the GOAT list. And some people are going to cringe when I say that because he doesn't have 50 title defenses. But remember, back in the day, you were defending your belt in your fourth UFC fight because there was hardly anyone in the division, and it was easy to even fight for the title to begin with. Nowadays, you got to win 10 fights in a row, especially if you're not the most entertaining fighter. Imagine GSP in today's day and age. They'd make GSP fight 11 times. GSP wasn't known for his incredibly entertaining style. He'd have to fight 11 times. He'd get to the title. If he wins, he would be on a 12-fight win streak defending his belt for the first time. So, this whole idea of you need 50 defenses, no, let's just see how many wins you have, how many losses you have, and how good are those wins, okay? He's not the GOAT. He's not one win away, but he's closer than most people would like to admit if they actually look into it. But as I said, I think this is the case where Belal Muhammad will have the volume. He'll have more moments of success. But there are fights where you get two high-level fighters and one guy has more moments because they're a busier fighter. The other guy is more patient. And you can't just say that, one guy you're admitting will have more moments, so you're telling me they're better, when it's clearly part of the other guy's game, in this case, Jack Della Maddalena, to be the patient guy, to wait for his shots, to not expend too much energy. And he has a decent gas tank. He's training the specifics with Craig Jones. He's not going to get submitted. He's not going to get finished. And Leon Edwards in that fight, despite the fact that he's not that great in the pocket, Leon was landing here and there, right? He was landing some nice counter shots and Belal, some good uppercuts. JDM's way better than Leon Edwards in the pocket. So if Belal tries to make this a gritty fight where he's going to try to show off the hands like Canelo, this is the last guy you want to do that with. The way Belal should fight this fight was the way he fought, what's his name, Vicente Luque, right? Where he's kicking, he's having a heavy kicking game, and he can play that rangy kicking style, which is, credit to Belal. He's, as I said, good at mixing up his game plans, depending on who the opponent is. So maybe he's saying he's going to throw hands like Canelo. Obviously, he doesn't believe he's got hands like Canelo, but, obviously, it sounds to me like he's confident in his boxing these days. He could say that he's confident in his boxing these days and show us something completely different. But I actually think that he's being serious. I think that Belal, and you know what? I'm sure his boxing has improved. And he's probably better than most people think on the feet. But he's still getting clipped here and there. He still doesn't look totally polished on the feet. And a lot of it works because of the threat of the takedown. And I assume it's going to work in this fight. But I just think that he's going to get caught a few times. And JDM will have, a lot of energy and a lot of power in his shots because he ain't going to be throwing that much because he's going to get taken down in the first round and he will not be throwing that much in the first round, right? The time that the third round rolls around, he's going to have thrown 3 strikes. He's going to have a ton of energy, right? So it's only a matter of time before he catches Belal. But then again, it's always easier to imagine Belal getting caught because he's not this dangerous fighter. But he always just goes out there and wins because it's like, well, I'm just super well-rounded. He had 25 minutes, but I've just frustrated him for 25 minutes. So that could happen. So I'm going to pick JDM. I'm going to pick him by a third round TKO, but it's a close fight. I could see Belal winning, and just because I'm not going to say I'm like 100% confident JDM gets it done, but I think that he has the style. I think he's got the style. All right. And I don't like Belal talking about how he's going to go out there and box. If I'm Belal Muhammad, and maybe he's just saying that, which would be smart to make your opponent think one thing. But if I'm Belal Muhammad, I'm fighting him like I fought Luque, right? Kicks on the outside, shoot a takedown whenever they throw a punch, rinse and repeat. He could win that way. But I have a feeling that Belal is going to get very confident after that Edwards fight, and he's going to be willing to scrap. And he's tough. He's got a good chin, but man, you do not want to grit down with JDM. So I'm sort of assuming that he will test his boxing quite a bit in this fight, and that will be his downfall, where I really think that if he's going to win this, I think he has to really grapple heavy in this fight and play it very safe on the feet. And people are not going to like that performance, but I think that's what he'll need to do to win this fight. But I'm going to pick JDM. I am. And I'll probably look real stupid if I get this one wrong. But then again, I'm telling you that Belal could win this fight. At the end of the day, not every fight is going to be, you have to go all in on one fighter. That's not necessarily how it is in every fight. There's some fights where I'm going to say, well, yeah, I just think this guy's going to destroy this guy. But this is one where it really is 50-50. But I'm going to go with the underdog in this one. All right. I'm going to go with JDM. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Until next time.